Greetings everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Market Segmentation and Customer Critical Success Factor Development Criteria. Great to have you all here with us. I am Arta Lamani, the Account Manager of Quality Management Systems here at PECB and the organizer for this webinar. This webinar will be presented by David Smart, PECB Certified Trainer and Managing Director of Smart ISO Systems and Smart Mentoring. Please feel free to write your questions and comments in the question box in the right-hand control panel, or you can use the raise hand function. We will unmute you and you will have a chance to ask the question directly to David. David will answer to all questions accordingly at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Enjoy, and David, you may continue with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Arta, and good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. As Arta said, we're going to talk about market segmentation today. Now, this is the front end of developing a key performance indicator for your quality management system. So this is the front end to find out what your customers want and then develop key performance indicators internally to match the critical success factors. So in this presentation we will explore different ways of segmenting the markets that your companies trade in. This is followed by giving you some examples of critical success factors that your customers need, which can go on and establish bases to determine what levels of satisfaction you are currently providing against each criteria. From your baseline measurements, you can improve your service or product spec delivery levels in the areas where you're currently underperforming, or if that is a perception of your customers that you're underperforming, you might not think so. It also allows you to measure and maintain these levels and therefore have a better chance of retaining your customers or indeed winning more business as a result of measuring and reporting your performance to them. I'll now go quickly on to giving you a little bit of background about myself. My own experience goes back to the days of ES 5750, where I was lucky enough to be part of a large project team putting in 5750 into two large manufacturing plants way back in 1979. I then registered as a consultant with PIRA after being made redundant twice in 3 years, when I decided to set up my own consultancy practice where I specialised just in quality and called it Smart Quality Systems. Credibility was a problem I had, so I joined a large American consultancy firm working on corporate projects throughout Europe for 3 years, which gave me exposure in Europe and also broader consultancy experience apart from quality. I then worked in North America for around 9 years on projects with mostly small to medium-sized enterprises, broadening my experience even further by working on other ISO standards, for example, health and safety, the environment, information security. In 2008, I came back home again and set up Smart Mentoring to complement my ISO skills. I feel often companies do not fully understand the benefits that ISO systems can bring to their business. They focus far too much on the marketing side, the badge up on the wall mentality, using them as bolt-on systems without looking at the bottom line savings that can be made by improvements in their internal processes by better resource utilization. So the first part of this is market segmentation, and I'll show you how to segment your market in the following slides. What does it mean? It is the identification of portions of your market that are different from one another. Segmentation allows us to satisfy the particular needs of our potential customers. We cannot be all things to all men. The salesman wants to sell all the products in all the colours. At the other end of the spectrum, the manufacturing manager wants to have one model and a large order. By segmenting our market, we target our efforts on the sectors we can best service. The need for segmentation. The marketing concept calls for us to have an understanding of our customers and the satisfaction of their needs better than our competitors. But different customers have different needs, and it is rarely as possible to satisfy all customers by treating them all in the same way. Now, I might do a presentation later on which covers how to identify the traits in your various customers, which would augment this presentation, but there's nothing on that in this one. I just thought about that as I was going through this. So I may do something later on. So moving on to the next slide. Mass market definition refers to treating the market as a homogeneous group and offering the same marketing mix to all of our customers. The marketing mix is defined by 4 P's: product, place, promotion, and price. And depending on where we place the emphasis determines the marketing mix. You will see that I have placed price last. All too often, too much emphasis is put on price rather than the other 3. We all say price is the most important thing, and we all like a bargain. But let me ask you a question. Do you read the bottom of a bottle when buying perfume for your wife or aftershave for your husband? I would strongly suggest no. You get the brand and the fragrance they want, and then finally look at the base of the bottle to check the price or the shelf. Characteristics. Sorry, I didn't bring that in. Sorry, apologies here. Characteristics. Mass marketing allows economy, for example, through mass production, mass distribution, and mass communication. But the drawback is that our customers' needs and preferences differ, and the same offering is unlikely to be viewed as optimal by all of our customers. If we ignore our different customer needs, one of our customers is more likely to come into the market, one of our competitors, I should have said competitors, not customers, is more likely to come into the market with a product that serves their specific groups, and we will eventually lose that customer. Target marketing recognizes the diversity of customers and tries to please them by offering specific mixes to match their specific needs. By breaking our market down into segments, we can match our offering to the needs of our selected target market. The first requirement in the market segment is it's got to be identifiable. The different attributes of the segments must be measurable so that they can be identified. Next one is accessibility. These segments must be reachable through communication and your distribution channels. It must be substantial. The segments must be sufficiently large to justify the resources required to target them. The fourth point, unique needs. To justify separate offerings, the segments must respond differently to the different marketing mixes. And the final one is durable. The segment should be relatively stable, minimize the costs of frequent changes. A good market segmentation will result in segment members that are internally homogeneous and externally heterogeneous. That is, similar within the segment and as different as possible between the segments. First way you can segment your market is by geographic, and some of the sub areas would be by region. For example, by continent, country, state, or even neighbourhood. Now I've given an example. Methyl is different from Kirkcaldy. These are just local towns near me, about 15 miles apart, but obviously they're in the same county. The next one is demographic variables: age, gender, family size, family life cycle, generational, war babies, 50s babies, etc., income, occupation, education, ethnicity, nationality, religion, and social class. Many variables have standard categories for their values. For example, family life cycle is often expressed as bachelor married with no children, dinks, double income, no kids, full nest, empty nest, or solitary survivor. Some of these categories have several stages, for example, full nest 1, 2, and 3, depending on the age of the children. We will look at socio-economic groupings in later slides. I apologise for the spelling there. That should say psychographic. There shouldn't be a niche after the Y. Psychographic segmentation groups customers by their life cycle, activities, interests, and opinions. A10 surveys are one tool for measuring lifestyle. Some psychographic variables include activities, interests, opinions, attitudes, and values. The next category is behavioralistic. This segment is based on actual customer behavior towards products. Some behavioral variables are benefits sought, usage rate, brand loyalty, user status, for example, potential buyers, first-time or regular buyers, readiness to buy, occasions, for example, holidays and events that stimulate purchases. It's not by accident that when you go and do your shopping that sweets are next to the till. These are impulse buys, as an example. Behavioral segmentation has the advantage of using variables that are closely related to the product itself. It's a fairly direct starting point for market segmentation. Industrial market characteristics. In contrast to consumer markets, customers in industrial markets tend to be fewer in number and purchase larger quantities. They evaluate offerings in more detail, and the decision process usually involves more than one person. These characteristics apply to organizations such as manufacturers and service providers, as well as resellers, governments, and institutions. Many of the consumer market segmentation variables can be applied to industrial markets. The following are examples of variables: location, company size, and behavioral characteristics. And first one is location. In industrial markets, customer location may be important in some cases. Shipping costs may be a purchasing factor for vendor selection for products. Having high bulk to value ratios, so distance from the vendor may be a crucial consideration when making the buying decision. In some industries, companies tend to cluster together geographically and therefore may have similar needs within a region. Next one is company type. Business customers can be classified according to the type as follows. In contrast to consumer market customers, they tend to be fewer in number and purchase larger quantities. They evaluate offerings in more detail, and the decision-making process usually involves more than one person. These characteristics apply to organizations such as manufacturers and service providers, as well as retail. Now, I've already said that. Many of the consumer market segments can be applied to industrial, which is company size, industry sector, decision-making unit, purchasing criteria. And the next one, or the last one, is behavioral characteristics. In industrial markets, patterns of purchasing behavior can be a basis for segmentation. Examples of behavioral characteristics are usage rate, buying status, For example, potential buyer, first-time buyer, or a regular buyer. Purchasing procedure, sealed bid, contract negotiations, etc. I will now have a look at socio-economic groupings. So there are 6 categories. Now bring in B as well, now you've had a chance to read it. We can see the first 2 categories, A and B, speak about professional people and intermediate and higher management levels. And I've given some examples in both categories here. The next 2 categories are the C1 and the C2. The next 2 categories cover first-line supervisory and administrative staff and tradesmen. And 5 and 6. The final 2 categories cover semi-skilled, unskilled, along with other general categories, for example, unemployed, pensioners, etc. Now, there's a lot of information that's available to us to do our research with. This particular example, showing leisure activities, even though it is really old and out of date information, is taken from the Office of Statistics here in the UK. You can do similar research within your own country, especially on government websites. Here's another example. Again, this just shows each social group who use the library services, comparing the library's own data with national statistics. This is particularly important here in the UK at the moment, as many libraries are being closed and efforts are being made by community groups to run them and keep them open. We'll now go on to look at critical success factor determination. The areas you select will obviously be local to your own markets, depending on the regions you trade in, which may even be international markets. And an example I've given East, West, or Mid-Texas. I've just shown 3 examples which are in service sectors, but they could just have easily been in manufacturing, and I'll show you here hospitality, retail, leisure, and the manufacturing examples are electronics, heavy engineering, etc. Next one is turnover examples. 50k, 100k, 500k. You can choose to select your biggest customers and do some research on them, or alternatively smallest customers you want to develop relationships with. It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. This is your research. I'm just giving you some ideas as prompts. These are just some more examples to get you to think about why and how you might determine criteria for segmentation. Length of time in business, range of products sold, company size, number of employees, etc. So we'll now go on and look at key account holder selection. So what is possible selection criteria? Recognised product leader, and I've used Marks and Spencer's. And in this country, Richard Branson is big into things. He's always on the TV as MD of his own company. But anybody you can think of as a charismatic leader. Again, it's your research. I've just selected examples that make sense to me. And the second selection criteria, possible criteria, they won awards, and I've used an example of Malcolm Baldridge. Or next one is recent expansion, acquisitions, new facilities, staff recruitment. Just more selection criteria. It has to be as broad or narrow as you want it to be, depending on the resources you have and how critical the data is. The final example is In the last 3 slides, I have given you 6 examples of criteria, restating what I have already said. It is your market research. You must select criteria that make sense to you and will yield, for example, increased sales, deeper market penetration, or whatever goal you're trying to achieve with your research. So we'll now go on and look at establishing critical success factor selection. There should be no more than 5 or 6 that you select so that they can be easily controlled and monitored. And they've got to be relevant to your customers. If there is not enough time or sufficient resources to conduct surveys on your entire market, then select one market segment. For example, do you want to penetrate further into it to gain a bigger share, or is it one you want to benchmark yourself in? These are just 2 criteria. So I'll give some examples now of criteria. On-time delivery, after-sales support, technical expertise, product supply meets its specifications, perception of value for money, and last one, sustainability of supply. That is my presentation, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I'll now take any questions that you might have for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for this presentation. Now with the time left, we'll go ahead with questions. Therefore, if you have any questions, please ask them. Use the comment box or the raise hand function. Thank you. The first question is, in your experience, which approach did you use to address hard-to-reach segments?
Every segment in itself might be hard to reach. What you're trying to do is segment the market, as I've said, break it down into key account holders, preferably people that you can speak to and get the information out of quickly. So all you want is about 5 or 6 key factors. Now, you're saying hard to reach markets, but in my experience, there's nothing more that people like to talk about than their jobs. So therefore, it's about getting them to open up and saying to you, I mean, I usually start off by saying phrases like, look, we've worked with you. Take an example in a golf course. We're walking down to start a game of golf, and I start talking to the guy, and I say, look, we've been doing business with you for years now, and I think we provide a pretty good service, but I don't know whether we do. So I'd like to ask you 2 or 3 questions, which are open-ended. So the guy usually gives a middle-of-the-road response because he's wanting me to buy him a drink at the end of the round, etc. Whatever, just social niceties. So he'll say to me, well, you've got your bad points, you've got your good points. If you'd been that bad, we wouldn't have dealt with you. Now that's I'm beginning to open up. So home it in again, and sometimes I use SWOT analysis to do this type of interview if I'm doing it in a sort of informal way that we're speaking. But you could just use it the same formally over the telephone. So I say to us, give me 3 strengths that you think our products have, or 3 strengths that you think our services have. Then I'll say, what areas do you think we could improve on? Give me 3 ideas where you think we could improve our product service levels to you. And then I'll say, what opportunities, what products are we not providing you with at the moment that you might be interested in talking to us about? Or is there any areas of your business that you're thinking about taking the business away from us? So I've covered all the 4, the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And then I'll probably say, look, I've got a terrible memory. This is gold dust to me. And you've got to be careful not to interrupt the conversation, the pattern, the flow of the information. But you need to capture that data. Now, if the guy's okay with you recording it, fine. But a lot of people feel uncomfortable. But nowadays, with video cameras and that, it's becoming more acceptable to film people and that. But even supposing that you just, at the end of the conversation, before you swung your first stroke on the golf course, if you just had post-it notes or your recorder with you and just summarised the conversation that you had with them, then you've got a lot of information that you can develop your indicators from. I mean, it's quite a big area that, but hopefully I've given you some pointers to how it's not that difficult to do. I mean, if you're driving with a guy on a long journey down to a trade show or something like that, you've got them captured in your car for hours. So there's another easy opportunity, or when you're inviting them in for a meal or whatever, there are many, many opportunities when you can solicit information, and you can do it at different levels. As well as segment your market, you can segment the company by talking to senior managers, buyers, delivery drivers, and looking and compare and do what they call triangulation, and see and compare the answers you get from the different levels and see if you get the same answers, because you don't always get the same answers from everybody in that. And a lot of the time some of the senior people will tell you what they think you want to hear. So hopefully that answers your question. I could go on for a long time, but there's other people. But if you want to email me and ask me the question, that's fine. I'll answer it maybe in a wee bit more depth. So thank you again.
Thank you, David. The next question is, can you please explain what is the biggest difference between critical success factors and key performance indicators?
All right, okay. Well, when I've been speaking about critical success factors, that is usually considered what your customers want from you. And it's critical that you determine what these factors are. There's no point in you delivering, if I use a fruit analogy, you delivering grapes if he's wanting apples. So that's what I mean by critical success factors, and I said you should only take about 5 or 6, because that's enough for you to try and control at any one time. Now, I mentioned at the start of this presentation about key performance indicators. Now, when I talk about key performance indicators, I'm meaning internal indicators within your own company. So if you find out what your critical success factors are for your customers, then if you come inside the organization at your processes, you need to develop key performance indicators that align with the critical success factors, and take a baseline with your customers at the beginning, and then go back in 3 or 6 months and say, is our service levels or our performance levels any better? So it's about comparing the two, establishing critical success factors and establishing internal indicators, performance indicators that match the critical success factors. Hope that's explained it well enough.
Thank you. David, the next question is, can you please provide some examples of critical success factors in sales, particular small business companies?
Well, there are many, many examples, but cash flow is a big problem with a small company. That's one of the biggest reasons to go out of business. Now, if you can guarantee delivery of part deliveries or just in time or next day delivery or things like that, then you're in a long way to buying the business. But you must ask the person what's important. The whole point in doing this exercise is you must find out what the customer wants, not the criteria that you think the customer wants. That's the most important part of it. Now, other examples, often a small supplier might get components from you, sub-assemblies or things like that. So he wants to know that he maybe doesn't need to do goods and inspection on it. It's about going the extra mile and seeing. Too often suppliers are, what happens in a buying department often is that they select 3 suppliers and ask for 3 separate quotes, and then they play off one against each other on prices. Now that is a bit antiquated in the thinking. The idea is to form links with your upstream and downstream suppliers. And if you think about your upstream suppliers being your customers, and then you in the center and your suppliers as the other side of the link, that's three of the main links, but you can go away further down or away further up. Customer, etc., the end user or the supplier of the raw materials, and on and on. So what I'm driving at here is you're only as strong as your weakest link. So you should see it in your interest to form a partnership with, don't see them as adversaries, see your suppliers and your customers as part of a chain, and you must help your suppliers deliver what you want. In turn, you must deliver. I mean, I see many times in quality systems about contract review, and I hear people saying, I could tell you a million horror stories about no doing contract review, about people saying, when we win the order, we'll worry about delivering it. Now, if you don't understand the conditions that you have to deliver to, you're going to be in a lot of problems. So to try and summarize the question that was asked is, you must find out the criteria that is important to your customers, and you mentioned small particular SMEs. Now, as I've said, cash flow, get material delivered on time, getting it at the right quality so that they need to inspect it. I mean, one very simple example I can give you, I worked with a guy in Toronto, and he had he was a chiropractor, and he sold little portable massages for your neck. And when I went in, he was checking the incoming parts, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm checking the incoming parts." I says, "Why?" He says, "Because I'm getting them all back when I fit the batteries." I can't remember exactly what it was something like that. And I said, "But you shouldn't be doing that. You've already paid for good parts." So anyway, I wrote away to the guy in China to help him, and the guy wrote me back and started talking in percentage defects and the best they could do. And I said, look, in the electronics industry we talk about parts per million, not parts per 100. So you need to come and supply what you want. And he used to send them back and all the rest of it. But that wasn't identifying the true costs. Just the customer, the supplier giving them a credit wasn't helping him. His business was getting destroyed because the products were all getting sent back. So that is the kind of things that you must find out what the customer's problems are and see how you can help them. Now, it might be simple things like getting them a hand on some stats to actually measure their performance, some training or something like that. It could be 100 things. Anyway, I've gone on a bit again. Hopefully that's answered that question reasonably well. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question is, from your practical experience, how can a quality management system assist you when selecting your market segmentation?
How can a quality management system assist you? Go and read it back to me again to make sure I've heard it correctly.
Yes, from your practical experience, how can a quality management system assist you when selecting your market segmentation?
Right. The whole point in your quality management system is about continual improvement, about making use of your resources, the best use of your resources that you can. Now, usually I speak about resources as 4 M's: men, money, machines and material. And you want to maximize these issues. You want to get your processes all working effectively so that you minimize your rework, you minimize, we sometimes talk about quality costs, the failure, the appraisal and the prevention costs in measuring them. Now, that is a way that by finding out what your customers are wanting and developing performance indicators for your processes, then once you've bottomed out one, and the problem with quality is once you've sorted something out, you take your eye off the ball, and before you know it, something that was running okay causes you a problem. But taking that to one side, it's about making bottom line savings, making your company more successful by bottom line savings, and in turn you can probably pass that on to your customers by lower prices. I mean, it's not unusual for a customer to come in these days and ask for a 20% cut in the prices that you're delivering. And I mean, I did a job in Texas. You talked about practical work, and they were making PCB boards, and they were $23 per board. That's what it cost them to manufacture them. So the choice the lady had to make was, do I pay off people that have got me to where I am now, or do I make the boards for nothing? Because they've demanded that. She said to me that the $23 were the basic manufacturing costs. So anyway, the bottom line was that she managed to make these savings, and 2 or 3 years later I went in and she was still surviving, and in fact growing, because they had made an acquisition and had a strategic alliance with a cable manufacturer as well. So these are practical examples. Too often quality systems are sold on marketing, more business, and nobody knows about or tells them about the improvements they had made. But you start looking at Lean and Six Sigma, and there's loads and loads of Malcolm Baldrige Awards, there's hundreds, balanced scorecard, business excellence models, there's hundreds of ideas out there. The problem I find usually with quality professionals is that they have difficulty selling their ideas to the management team in general, and I do feel they're misunderstood a lot. And that is a big challenge for quality professionals, in my view, to be able to use the skills that they've got and demonstrate to the company true bottom line savings that can be made. When I worked for a big American consultancy group, they coupled behavioural change programs in with lean techniques, and that was very successful. It was not unusual to make a return of 3 to 1 on their investment. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. You're speaking about the quality system and what improvements or how it can help in market segmentation. At the end of the day, your quality system is there to provide what your customer wants. And as I've said already, I've seen hundreds of contracts where they don't understand the conditions. I'll give you one more example. There was a company in England and Wales that wanted to install video equipment so that children who had been abused didn't need to give evidence in open court. So I got the contract sent to me, and it was all in legal jargon, and the first question that was on the contract was, you must accept the contract as is. You couldn't clarify it. When I asked the salespeople if they understood that, they said, that's just legal gobbledygook, you just ignore that. And I said, well, you cannot ignore it because these are the contractual conditions. And then I could go on forever about people, sales guys, seeing dollar signs in front of their eyes and signing a contract, and then they don't need to deliver. It's usually the manufacturing people or the service people are behind them, is to deliver on the promises that they have made on the company's behalf. That'll do for just now. You can email me, anybody that's listening in, and ask for a more in-depth thing. But I feel I've covered it quite well. So thank you once again, and hope I've answered that question.
Thank you, David. Before we conclude this presentation, I have a hand raised. We're going to go ahead and squeeze in this question. It's by Silva Kasim. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic, and you can ask your question. Your mic is unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay.
Your mic.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, my question is the
I'm sorry, we're having
different
difficulties hearing you. If you could write your question in
okay,
the chat box and I can read it out to David because I'm having a very hard time hearing your question.
okay, okay.
Sorry about that.
I like it. Okay.
Thank you again, David, for this great presentation. Because of the time limited, we will have to conclude this presentation. However, if you have any other questions, you can send your questions through email and we will answer to them individually. So if you have any
Is
questions,
that question sorry, Arta.
the
Is that
question,
question coming in by email?
it can come in by email, yes. When I sent you the report, then yes, you should have. Actually, he has just wrote it, so I will read it out to you really quick before I conclude this presentation. It says the KPI and critical success factor again. So the key performance indicators and the critical success factor again to be, I guess, explained thoroughly.
Okay, well just ask him to email me and I'll write something back.
Okay,
Okay?
great. Yes, yes, thank you again. And I would also like to thank all the attendees for taking time out of their busy schedules today to join us. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. To keep up with our webinars, please check PECB's webinar schedule on our website, pecb.com, or our official social media network, since next week we're organizing webinars on interesting topics. Thank you all again, and thank you, David. Hope to see you next
Thank you.
week. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for your time.